many kinds of death. Some are better than others.
What is up, everybody? Jeremy Eisenfire here, and welcome to the channel. 28 Years Later is quickly shaping up to be one of the most highly anticipated films of the year. And after back-to-back phenomenal trailers, the hype for the film seems to be at an all-time high. But what exactly is this film going to be about? Director Danny Boyle and writer Alex Garland have been very tight-lipped in terms of the details surrounding the overall plot, but if we look at the trailers along with some of the recent images that have released, we start to get a better picture of what we might expect, and who the main villain of the film might potentially be. After taking a look at some of the newest 28 Years Later images surrounding Ralph Fiennes' character and the character of Jamie's son, I think there is a connection that is developing here, with Ralph Fiennes' character potentially trying to initiate him into this death cult that we've heard a little bit about, a cult I believe he is the leader of, with the massive bone temple in the trailers being their place of worship. We see in some of these newest images Ralph Fiennes' character handing Jamie's son what appears to be an old human skull, or that of an infected. And if we take a look at some of the newest posters for 28 Years Later, it looks like we can see Jamie's son climbing to the top of the bone temple and placing that skull on top of it, potentially pointing to some kind of initiation ritual. One of the things that stands out about the 28 Years Later trailers is how Aaron Taylor Johnson's character, Jamie, and his son seem to depart from their settlement alone, but later on in the trailers we see that he becomes separated from his father and is only with his mother and Ralph Fiennes' character. And thanks to some of the statements that Ralph Fiennes has given over the last few months, we do know that the son at some point goes in search of a doctor for his dying mother, potentially leading him to Ralph Fiennes' character in the first place, with maybe him even potentially being said doctor. And once you take a closer look at some of the trailers and some of the promotional material, you start to wonder if this death cult might actually play a bigger role in the film than we originally imagined, as the second trailer in particular has a very cleverly hidden box cipher, which translates to Memento Mori, which means remember that you must die. Could Jamie and his son potentially depart from the settlement searching for a doctor for his dying mother, only to come across this death cult that might have a particular interest in Jamie's son, leading Jamie to scramble to try and rescue his family before it's too late? And if so, why exactly is Ralph Fiennes' character so interested in Jamie's son to begin with? And what exactly is this potential initiation that Ralph Fiennes' character is going to put Jamie's son through? When we take a closer look at some of the images, we start to potentially see a few hints. Not only do we see the one of him handing his son a skull, but we also see another one earlier which appears to be Ralph Fiennes' character, Jamie's son, and his mom traversing some kind of lake, with what appears to be a bloody skull in Ralph Fiennes' character's hand. Yet in some of the other images, the skull appears to already have been boiled down. Is this potential initiation a test of sorts for Jamie's son, in order to catch and kill an infected on his own and add that skull to the bone temple himself? Could this potentially be how he gets Ralph Fiennes' character, named Kelson, to agree to help his mom, while also initiating him into the death cult at the same time? Could the hunting and killing of an infected and adding the skull to the bone temple be a rite of passage of sorts for the death cult? And what exactly is going to be this group's main goal overall? And if the death cult is going to be central to the overall plot, then how exactly are the infected going to fit into the film as well? One thing we see in both of the trailers are what appears to be some signs of heightened intelligence by some of the infected, with one in particular looking far smarter and stronger than the rest, and almost behaving similar to a human would, and could potentially even be commanding some of the other infected. In both of the trailers, we see one of the infected with long hair appears to be one of the focal points of the film, with the second trailer in particular starting with him attacking some of the soldiers and ripping one of their heads off while proceeding to use it as a blunt instrument, which also is reflected in some of the 28 Years Later posters, as we see an infected holding a human head with a spine attached. And previously in the first trailer, we see this same long hair infected in a field surrounded by other infected. And while the other infected around him appear to be acting like regular rage virus victims, he appears to be much calmer and walking much slower than the rest, further indicating that he has a heightened level of intelligence, similar to the soldier in the first 28 Days Later film. And if some of the rage virus victims were already starting to display heightened intelligence in the first film, then one can only imagine how much they have evolved over the 28-year period. Writer Alex Garland did recently speak out in a behind-the-scenes segment about the infected, and how they are very much still living beings, and nothing like the zombies that we have seen in other films, who die and are resurrected, and speaks about how the rage virus victims need sustenance just like any other human to survive, and how if they have survived over a 28-year time period, how exactly would they compare to other animals in the animal kingdom.
They're living people who've got sick and been infected with the rage virus. They need to drink, they need to eat.
And when taking a closer look at some of the trailers, they definitely appear to be moving in unison, almost as though there is some kind of hierarchy in place, with the long hair infected we see in many of the scenes potentially being the leader. And director Danny Boyle himself has also stated that the rage virus victims are going to be extraordinary creatures. I get the feeling we are going to see something much different in 28 years later than we have ever seen before, making these creatures far more interesting than any zombie we've ever seen, and far more formidable as well. And knowing how there isn't just one, but 3 new 28 years later films on the way is very exciting, especially knowing that 2 of the 3 have already been filmed, with the second film in the trilogy being titled The Bone Temple, which will most likely go even deeper into this death cult. And of course, one of the biggest questions surrounding the upcoming trilogy is what kind of role Cillian Murphy is going to play in the films. We are potentially hearing that he might not appear in the first film, but will have some kind of role to play in the second and third, with Cillian Murphy himself stating multiple times that he would love to return to the franchise, which of course is something that fans have wanted to see for almost 30 years, and to finally see exactly what Jim has been up to since the end of the first film. Could he potentially be tied to this death cult and the Bone Temple in some way, shape, or form, or will he have a separate storyline entirely? And if so, how exactly will it fit into the overall plot? One thing's for sure, this is definitely my highest anticipated film of the year, and I cannot wait to dive back into the world of 28 years later, and see what Danny Boyle and Alex Garland really have in store for us. And knowing that the original team that brought us 28 Days Later is returning makes it that much more compelling. But definitely let us know some of your thoughts and comments down below. What do you think is going to be happening in 28 years later? And what kind of role will Cillian Murphy's Jim play in the upcoming trilogy? But that is going to do it today for our 28 years later theory breakdown. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like on your way out and consider subscribing to stay up to date on all of our upcoming 28 years later content. And as always, I want to give a big thank you to everybody out there for watching, and we will see you on the next one.
There's no discharge in the war.